Did you know that FIFA approves more than 30 million footballs every year? Did you know that the Brazilian Pelé was on the World Cup winning team 3 times? Did you know that Canada has only qualified once for the World Cup, in 1986? Did you know that live, worldwide television coverage of the World Cup began in 1958? The tradition of swapping shirts began in the World Cup in 1954. The first player to miss a penalty kick in a World Cup match was Valdemar de Brito of Brazil, in 1934. The World Cup is held for the first time in Asia in 2002, 72 years after it first began. The most goals scored in a single World Cup tournament were 171, in 1998. Franz Beckenbauer is the only person to win the World Cup as both a player in 1974 and as a coach in 1990. In 1982, Laszlo Kiss became the first substitute player to score a hat-trick in a World Cup match. In 1990, Pedro Monzon became the first player to be sent off in a World Cup final. The oldest goal scorer in World Cup history was Roger Milla. He was 42 when he scored for the Cameroon national team against Russia in 1994. Did you know that Graham Poll, English referee, mistakenly issued 3 yellow cards to Croatian player Josip Simunic in the FIFA World Cup 2006? Englishman George Reader is the oldest person, at age 52 years, to referee a World Cup final. It involved Brazil and Uruguay in year 1950. Did you know that the true name of the World Cup is the Jules Rimet Trophy? The fastest goal in a World Cup match involved Turkey and South Korea and was scored by Hakan Şükür in just 11 seconds. The first ever World Cup final involved Argentina and Uruguay, the score being 2-4, which makes Uruguay the first ever World Cup winners. The original and real 18-karat gold FIFA World Cup is 36.8 centimeters, 14.5 inches, height and weighs 6,175 grams, 13.61 pounds. The only time the World Cup was cancelled was in 1942 and 1946 due to World War II. Brazil holds the record for the most World Cup goals, which is currently 210 goals. The final of the 2022 Qatar World Cup is planned to be held in a city which does not even exist yet. Luis Monti is the only player who has played in two World Cup finals for two different countries. He played for Argentina in the year 1930 and for Italy in the year 1934. The most goals ever scored by a single team in a World Cup qualifying match was 31 goals. It was Australia against American Samoa in the year 2001. The World Cup football is the most watched event in the world. More than 1 billion people will watch the tournament. Germany currently holds the record for appearing in the most World Cup matches, which is 99 appearances as on date. Geoff Hurst is the only player to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final, which he did for England against West Germany in the year 1966. South Africa in 2010 is the only host country of the World Cup to have been eliminated in the first round. The current record for the most eliminations from the first round of the World Cup belongs to Scotland and is 8 times. The most number of yellow cards issued in a single World Cup match is 16. The match was between Portugal and the Netherlands in 2006 and also included 4 red cards. The most goals scored in a single World Cup match is 12, Austria 7 and Switzerland 5 in the year 1954. Germany holds another record for the most appearances in a World Cup semi-final, which is 11 till date. The World Cup cricketer, Sir Vivian Richards, also played World Cup soccer. The World Cup trophy was stolen in the year 1966 and went missing for a week. Fortunately, it was found wrapped in newspaper under some bushes by a dog named Pickles in South London. Sandor Kocsis of Hungary was the first player to score 2 hat-tricks in a World Cup, 1954. Brazil is the only country to have appeared in every World Cup tournament. Brazil holds the record for winning the most World Cup finals, it is 5 wins. Brazil and Germany share the record as each have appeared in 7 World Cup finals. The youngest player ever to play in a World Cup was Norman Whiteside. Norman Whiteside was only 17 when he played in the 1982 World Cup. All the matches of the first ever World Cup in the year 1930 were played in the city of Montevideo, in Uruguay. The fastest red card issued in a World Cup was after just 56 seconds in 1986 to José Batista of Uruguay. The largest recorded crowd for a World Cup final was 173,850 spectators and others in the year 1950 when Brazil played against Uruguay. Hungary currently holds the title for the most goals scored in a single World Cup match. They managed 10 goals against El Salvador in the year 1982. Lothar Matthäus, the German footballer, holds the record for the most World Cup match appearances, which is 25 World Cup matches. The World Cup final has been decided using penalties on 2 occasions till date, in the year 1994 and 2006. The first World Cup hat-trick was scored by an American player by name Bert Patenaude, in the year 1930. Italy had to wait 44 years between winning their second and third World Cup titles. Ronaldo, the famous Brazilian player, holds the record for the most goals scored during a player's World Cup career, which is 15 goals. Thanks for watching.